Amos Sewn, 96. The roll on of the videos carries on with the, what was it called again? Great memory. What a great memory, just allows the recall system. Yes, Reckless Renewables. Yes, saw a couple of videos yesterday, and today I've got a special treat for you. About 10 minutes for his first video. There's someone called Pauline. Anyway, let's have a bit of music first, eh? A bit more Kane Oz. Kane and Ilana. They're a couple of heroes, I reckon. Top people. No, this one's Freedom Army.
Yeah, 97. Yeah, we're the Freedom Army. You know how we roll. You never stop a soul. Look in my eyes, see the fight, see the light. We got God on our side. We're the almighty army. You know how we roll. You never stop a soul. Yeah. We see it through your disguise. Fight till we die, already made up our mind. Yeah. It's like 1984 and Tifa in the gov. The same in the way they talk, everything they say in reverse like Satan taught. Say I'm cooked, damn straight I'm raw. I got no plates on the way to court, I ain't even scared. I'll never pay a cent to the gov again. That I swear, I'm in it for the long haul. I'm on call, leaving no stone unturned, no truth untold. We're the Freedom Army, you know how we roll. You never stop a soul. In my eyes, see the fight, see the light. We got God on our side. We're the almighty army. You know how we roll. You never stop a soul. We see it through your disguise. Fight till we die, already made up our mind. The UN and the SDGs, the LGBT and AFP, ATO, WEF and ESGs, raped by WHO, these are STDs. What democracy? Who voted for this? No one did, even if we did, we know it'd be rigged. So no more sitting back, wishing, waiting for help. No, if you want real change, gotta do it ourselves. Yeah, we're the Freedom Army, you know how we roll. You never stop a soul. Look in my eyes, see the fight, see the light. We got God on our side, we're the almighty army. You know how we roll. You never stop a soul. We see it through your disguise. Fight till we die, already made up our mind. We're still here, mate. You think we'll stop? You reckon there's a bone in my body that thinks of giving up? Nah, there ain't even an atom, son. You must not know who we are. We're the Freedom Army. You know how we roll. You never stop a soul. Look in my eyes, see the fight, see the light. We got God on our side. We're the almighty army. You know how we roll. You never stop a soul. We see it through your disguise. Fight till we die, already made up our mind.
Well, how's that, folks? With a bit of luck, I've returned my mic back on and you can hear me. That was Kane Oz and Ilana. They're what a great couple of people. And they've put out some good music. Have a look at his site. He's on YouTube. Kane Oz and Ilana, I think they're called. Kane OBZ I and Ilana ILAINA. Look it up on YouTube. It's worth a look. Wait, for the first movie. You know what I mean. There's a couple of speakers, and about 10 minutes in, we'll get a bit of Pauline. When I find the right button to push. Cheerio, folks.
G'day. My name's Michael Fennelly, and I'm from the Central Coast. And I'm here to support the people of Port Stephens. And I grew up in the Illawarra. Who's from the Illawarra? And who's from Port Stephens? Okay, so I wanted to tell you a little bit about, we were going to have a floating wind farm off my home at Noraville and Nora Head. Mr. Bowen has repealed that project. That project is gone. I want to tell you how to get rid of all the projects in New South Wales. Offshore wind, the worst place in the world, certainly in Australia, for an offshore wind project is any of the eastern coast of New South Wales. And the fact that Chris Bowen, the most incompetent minister in Labor's history, really thought it was a good idea to try this on just shows you how he doesn't know his job. The problem is you can't put any wind farm off the coast of New South Wales with existing technology. We don't have a continental shelf anywhere off the coast of New South Wales. Every turbine off New South Wales has to float. How many floating wind turbines are there in the world? The biggest wind farm in the world that floats was opened in August last year, and there are 11 turbines. How many floating turbines does Bowen's project require? 1,000. 1,000. The reason it took them 7 years to get 11 turbines off Norway is because it's so hugely impossible to do on any scale. And certainly it's going to cost a bomb. But let me just tell you one fact, one memorable fact. Because these projects were originally meant to be 350 metres high and now have been reduced to 260 metres, to float just 20 of these turbines, 1/50th of the requirement by 2030, requires the entire steel chain production of the world for 1 year. For 1 year. That's why they couldn't build those 11 turbines in less than 7 years off Norway. So the whole projects, don't let anyone tell you that nuclear is not feasible when Bowen's doing a project that will take 50 years of the world's steel chain supply to float his boat. You've got to just tell this guy that Captain Bowen is dreaming if he thinks that they can float turbines off New South Wales. It's a crazy idea, and you need to get angry about it. And we need to stop worrying about who is the opposition. I don't care whether you're One Nation or Liberal or National or United Australia Party. When we got rid of the turbines off Norah Head, which we did last year, we did it because we had everyone in the community on our side, including, I might say, the Greens. Everybody with any blood in their veins who understands how dumb this project is should get angry and go after these guys with some facts. Just the facts. So we all need to tell Mr. Bowen, you've been a failure in every portfolio you've ever been given. Every single portfolio. And we need to tell Albo that it's about time that Bowen got going. Bugger off, Bowen. The wind farms are going.
The wind farms are going.
Fantastic. Thank you for your attention. All the best.
Hello everyone, my name is Stephen Tripp and I drove down from Sydney today and I saw all the wonderful wind farms out in the distance. Not one of them were moving. So they're fantastic, aren't they? But I want to start off by thanking you all for being here. It's so important that you are all here today doing this, and I'm going to tell you why. We've had a lot of people speaking here today from rural and remote communities, a lot of politicians, and they all said the right thing. The problem is, the majority of politicians and members of parliament in that house there represent city areas, and they're the ones that are not seeing what's happening in your communities. It's all out of sight, out of mind. Now, where I come from in Warringah in Sydney, in Northern Beaches, our Member of Parliament is Zali Steggall, and she's part of these teals that are running around saying, and they only did it the other week, since the last Sydney rally, they said that they want a 75% reduction of emissions by 2035. So they're the ones out there pushing these wind farms and solar panel farms. But Zali Steggall says in black and white on her website that she does not support wind farms on Warringah's beachfront. So it's all right for you guys to have it in your backyard, but she doesn't want it anywhere near her. You had Chris Bowen out recently. He was out near Dubbo somewhere, and he had his Akubra hat on, and he was announcing some new wind farm, and he's standing in a line of people with a whole bunch of shovels, and they push up a little bit of dirt, and they all smile and think it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. But as soon as he gets in his car and drives away, that's when the bulldozers come in and the graders come in, and they take that pristine land and bulldoze it straight to the ground. He's another one that represents the city electorate. He's in Sydney. They don't know what's going on, so that's why it's so important for all of you to hold these rallies. I was at the Sydney rally. It's great to see what you've done here in Canberra, and the organisers are doing such a fantastic job. So I encourage you, you've got to keep doing this. It is so important. We have politicians. I was seeing a Greens member speak recently, and she was debating nuclear energy, and she said, "Oh well, we can't have that because then you would have to mine the uranium for these plants, and we don't want any more mining. We don't want any more mining." As if these solar panels and wind farms just magically grow out of the ground without any mining at all. But they're pushing these lines, and unfortunately, a lot of people are gullible and they're taking it all in. So that's why we've got to keep active. We've got to keep doing things like this. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all getting involved. And I encourage you to keep doing this, and all the best for the future. Thank you very much.
Sack the lot! We are here for our farmers! We are here to make demands! Stop taxing our farmers! Stop the carbon tax! We're here to demand it!
I finished.
She was just filling in.
I'd love to get up there actually and give you some back. I've heard all day.
So I'm a farmer from the mid-north of South Australia. I was here. My name's Mary Morris. I was here for the 2013. There's my notes. I was here for the 2013 wind power fraud rally set up by Stop These Things. I've been really involved in the local community around my way for 12 years, trying to get some decent regulation on wind farms in our area. The people, particularly the Waterloo wind farm, the people that live there, a lot of them have moved because of the noise problems. A lot of them have to go away 2 or 3 days a week so they can get a decent sleep. We've tried to get the EPA to change the noise regulations, and they've done nothing. You can read all about those exploits in the mid-north of South Australia on Stop These Things. There's a lot of posts about the EPA and noise control in South Australia. So I'm particularly here today to say we need a Senate inquiry into all this crap which is being foisted on rural Australia. There was a Senate inquiry in 2014-15. They made a lot of recommendations. The government committed to a lot of things that were raised as recommendations in that Senate inquiry. And if you go back and look at them, you'll see that a lot of those commitments never came to fruition. We were supposed to get a national set of guidelines for environment and noise and siting of wind farms, and that has never happened. We need to get that happening so it can't be just cherry-picked into the softest spots. Another thing that happened was they set up a independent scientific committee to look at all the issues around wind farms. Well, that was disbanded in 2021, and as far as I've noticed, wind farms just keep getting taller and bigger, and therefore surely there's still need for scientific investigation. I'd like to talk a bit about the impacts on my local community. That is not just that people can't sleep in their own homes, it's the mental stress caused by sleep deprivation and seeing the area around you, the environment that you've loved and looked at your whole life, completely destroyed in an environmental sense for something that doesn't even work. I've got a particular outrage about environmental damage, and the fact that ecological consultants can just write any bullshit in their reports for the wind developers. They'll write whatever they want. If you want to put up the Waterloo wind farm, you don't need to have a buffer for the wedge-tailed eagles. You can just bulldoze the top of the ridgeline where the nests are. If you want to put up the different wind farm, you can have a 500 metre buffer. If you're Neowan and you own the Hornsdale big battery, you've got the government by the shore and Curleys. So if you want to build a wind farm in an area where there's critically endangered grasslands and endangered lizards, you know that you can just get a rubber stamp by Tanya Plibersek. So we'll just go along with it. So we've got enough wind power theoretically in South Australia and solar to service South Australia's needs. If that's the case, why are the government and energy companies continually building new diesel and gas-fired peaking plants? Because the whole time South Australia's energy is backed up by gas. So it just proves that the whole system doesn't work.
A bit longer than 10 minutes.
So the other thing about South Australia and our energy system is that we're paying absolutely crippling prices for power. With wind and solar, it was supposed to bring our power prices down. They just keep going up. I guess that's the main things I want to say, other than I'm here to raise awareness for another wind farm that is meant to be built on the northern escarpment of the Barossa Valley, if you don't mind. South Australia is a really good case in how not to do energy policy. We just don't want this same unsightly stuff rolled out all over the rest of the country. Thank you.
We are here to demand no more wind farms, no more solar panels, no CO2 taxes. We are here to make demands. Bugger off
Thank you.
bugger off Santos.
Thank you. My name's Nigel Wood, and I'm opposing the Bowmans Creek wind farm in the Hunter Valley. There will be 20 turbines that we can see from our house. And before, Matt Kavanagh was saying, imagine 300 metres high, 3 times higher than that. The ones surrounding our house are on the ridges. They are 600 and 650 metres higher than where we live. And they say it won't impact on us. It is bullshit. All right? And they talk about the wind farm proponents being cowboys. The New South Wales Department of Planning, they're outlaws compared with the proponents. Some of the stuff the Department are doing in New South Wales is actually doing work for the wind farm. So the Bowman Creek wind farm is owned by Careers Inc. and they're actually doing work. We're paying for it with our taxpayers' money for Careers Inc. to promote this wind farm. Not only that, they're not holding Careers Inc. accountable. So they get, this is the legislation, everyone's supposed to be worked by the planning legislation. If I want to build something that's illegal, there'll be people knocking on my door, pull it down, pull it down. In 2018, they built an illegal wind monitoring mast. It was up for over 4 years and nobody would do anything about it. But even moving forward, they're not following the planning legislation. There's supposed to be photomontages done for the impact on properties. And the photomontage legislation is prescriptive. It actually says this wide, this high. So what did they do? They make them twice as wide and half as high. So the turbines look like little spots on the landscape. They know this is people. The Department of Planning have given that to IPC, the Independent Planning Commission, and go, this is how you review it, because that's where it's up to now. This is how you review it, and this is what it will look like. It's just wrong, and it's completely not in line with the legislation. In consultation, I was a member of the CCC, the Community Consultation Committee. They shut it down over 2 years ago. This wasn't a proponent. This wasn't Careers Inc. This was the Department of Planning. Shut it down. Now we don't need it anymore. And it's not just the Bowmans Creek wind farm. I know the Hills of Gold at Nundle's been shut down. The legislation says the consultation committee should keep going all the way through. There's been no community consultation for over 2 years with the Bowmans Creek Wind Farm. With the approval, so it's now gone to the IPC, so the approval has got recommendations in it. So here's a neighbour agreement, and the neighbour agreement says, one of the recommendations, and there's numerous recommendations that are made that are just contrary to legislation, but one of the recommendations the Department of Planning have made is if they don't change the area that's disturbed for each turbine, they can modify the turbines however they want to. So they've asked for a 220 metre turbines, but they can go to 300 with no more EIS, no impact, no nothing. So they're just providing the IPC with misleading information. We will see over 20 turbines from our house, as I said before, about 600 metres higher than our house. They will have lights on them because we're quite close to Sewn Airport. They will have lights on them. They say, oh, the lights won't be flashing, except they will because the turbines go around, so the lights will flash. And the Career Zinc said the control will be people who could see the lights will have to shut the windows in the bedrooms at night and turn the lights on to make the windows mirrors, and then you can't see outside. Even prisoners can turn the lights off at night. We've been told we can't, and the department are supporting this proposal. They offered me a neighbour agreement. They go, oh, well, we know you're going to be badly impacted, except they've denied that ever since. So here's a neighbour agreement, and the neighbour agreement says, oh, we want to share the outcome of the wind farm being built with you because you're a neighbour. It's part of $2,000 a year. You can't complain about anything at all. So you can't complain about the lights in your bedroom. You can't complain about the noise. It's a burden on your property, so it would be a burden on your property. What I found most obnoxious, because they know the land value will drop, if you've got a mortgage, the bank may turn around and go, there's not enough equity now, your land value has dropped that much because of the wind farm. They had the right, if I'd signed it, they would have had the right to renegotiate my mortgage. That's bullshit. It's just wrong. And then to really rub salt into the wound, this has been going on since 2018. In June this year, I get the black plastic envelope that you would have got from Energy Co. We're going to put transmission line through the back of your property. 4.5 kilometres, hammering it like baggery. And I found them. Right now we'll have a meeting and supper. I want legal representation. No, we won't have legal representation. We won't pay for that. Hard luck. So that's fine. I've audio and video recorded it. They gave me permission, and this is what I'm going to do. But even though they knew it was going to be audio and video recorded, they still lied to me. So they turn around and lie, and they go, oh, we just want an access agreement. We just want to have a look. Except the access agreement is 4 pages of A4 with all the stuff they can do. They can drill holes, they can do test pits, they can do God knows what. Like I said, 4 pages of it. What people need to realise, they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes. They go, there's no risk to you, except under New South Wales, and it's the same in Queensland and Victoria. I'm not sure about South Australia. Occupational health and safety legislation, as the landowner, you're responsible for anybody that comes onto your property. And you're also responsible for environmental legislation. The safety legislation is 276 clauses with sub-clauses. You have to have a management plan, a safety management plan, that can be scrutinised in court if anything happens. It has to be the same quality as a big, large mining company, even though it's just me on my farm. So I had a meeting with them, so that's fine. This is what I need. I need to be able to comply with legislation. I want $5 million to write the plan, because that's what it costs to write the safety management plan. Oh, no, we can indemnify you. So you're breaking the law straight away by saying you can indemnify me, because you can't. So you're providing misleading information. And I want another $5 million for the environmental management plan. And on top of that, I will be auditing. I'll be auditing 3 times a day when you come on my place. And I will find something. I'll get brilliant auditors. I will find something every time. And when I find something, I will shut the job down for 3 days. I don't care if there's 10 adges full of concrete. I will stop them, and they can all go hard. You'll never move on my place. This is what you need to do. You need to use the legislation against them, because they won't provide you with information. They'll let you hang yourselves, and they'll say, oh, safe work in New South Wales, they won't prosecute you. No. But what happens if someone breaks a leg? And then you go and see one of these ambulance-chasing law firms. I'm not going to mention any names here, but you've all seen them advertised on TV. Come and see us if something's happened to you at work. And they're going to go, oh, we reckon you can get $3 million because your leg's buggered now for the rest of your life. You're only 22 years old. So they come in, right here, who are we going to sue? New South Wales government? No, they'll fight too hard. We're going to fight Transgrid? No, they'll fight too hard. We're going to fight the contract you're working for? No. Let's go and sue Nigel. He can get $3 million. He can sell his farm. You lose everything, and you don't even know. You've got to defend it and defend it and defend it, and you're up for probably $2 million in legals just to try and defend it, and then they can still get the money. This is what people are exposed to. Use the legislation for your own advantage. They won't tell you. Go and have a look. Your lawyers, a lot of them don't know about safety legislation and environmental legislation. They're the most. I don't care if it's 10 edges for the concrete. I will stop them and I'll go hard. You will never move in my place. Well, I know exactly how it works. I've got a grazing property, so I run a grazing property now, so I'm a proud grazier. I was a proud miner when I was mining. All right, we've got to be proud of what we did. I am not proud they want to put bloody wind turbines on the ridge around my house and light my bedroom up every night and vibrate me out to bed every night. It's bullshit. And then they talk about all these subsidies for all these wind farms and stuff. This is my last point. So all these subsidies for the wind farms and the solar panels and the transmission lines and $10 billion going there and $15 billion going there. There's no money left for the hospitals or the schools or the roads. We'll be back to horse and cart. We'll save the carbon tax, but the roads won't be worth driving on. That's what you need to realise. There'll be homeschooling, so there'll be no school buses. We'll save the carbon outputs because there'll be no money because they're subsidising Korea Zinc, all these foreign companies and stuff. It's not going to Australia, as all the other presenters said before. They're all made in China. The Chinese are rubbing their hands together, and most of them are flogged up to the Chinese companies. And what happens when the shit really hits the fan? They'll just go, turn the power off. We know how it works. Thank you very much.
We demand this carbon tax is removed. It is an absolute lie. No issues with carbon dioxide. Listen to the experts.
Hello, my fellow Australians. I am so pleased to see you. I'm sorry it's under these circumstances because I love this place as the heart of our democracy. I just can't stand the people in there that are running. A fellow called me up, he said, last time I saw you said you'd never get back in politics again. I said, yes, I'd have rocks in my bloody head. Now you can't get me out of the place because I want to get rid of them. And people keep saying to me, you know, why don't you do what Don Chip did, keep the bastards honest? And I said, no, I want to get rid of the bastards. It is. You know, I keep saying this all the time. And a lot of things that I said nearly 30 years ago, when I first got in politics in 1996, they all thought, oh, this stupid little woman from a fish and chip shop, what would she know? And they put me down. I ran my own business. I ran my own staff. I actually have farming. I've done cattle. I've done a plumbing business. I've run a small business most of my life. It's being grassroots. It's understanding. It's understanding the tough times, the hard times. You never forget it. And to see so many people in this country that are so fed up with our politicians because they've lost connection with the people, with grassroots they don't understand. Right from the very beginning, I have objected to this net zero BS. And that's exactly what it is. Look at my history. I opposed multiculturalism. I said we are multiracial, but we must be Australians. I opposed the COVID. I said don't put that shit into your body.
I've opposed so many things here that I've been the first one and I get criticised for it, that I don't know what I'm talking about, that I'm a racist. Well, history has proven that a lot that I have said has been right. I have opposed this scam that is going on in our country. I have opposed the UN for so many years that it is controlling us. We've lost control of our democracy. We've lost control of our parliament by weak politicians that have no idea what they're doing, controlled by the bureaucrats, told what to say because they don't research, they don't know what they're talking about. It is our country. And I get so furious with people who say, oh, you're all the same. What's the whole point? You're all the same. Well, I'm not the bloody same. And until you start to wake up the public, understand that when you go to vote, you are in control, not the politicians. You have to understand who you're voting for and why you vote for them. I will give you my word, along with my colleague Malcolm Roberts, that we stand up and we fight for our nation. I'm proud to say that I'm a proud Australian. I'm patriotic to this land. I was born here. This is my land. I welcome anyone that comes here for a better way of life. I stand side by side with any Aboriginal, any migrant, any Australian. But the fact is we've been divided by this place. We've been divided with policies. And it's not just the Labor Party. Even if the policies of the previous governments have not united us, we have seen the destruction and taken away our water rights, our land rights. We've had so much taken away from us that it's so wrong. And we've been led like fools to the slaughter because you've trusted your politicians to do the right thing by you. Politicians, you know, we're supposed to be your servants. And when I go against the grain and I say what I think, because you know what a lot of people say to me, you know what, Pauline, you've got the guts to say what I'm thinking. And they may criticise me all the time, but the whole fact is that I can sleep at night. I know why I'm here. I'm not going to be rolled over by anyone that is going to criticise me or have a go at what I say. What we have to do is the people of this nation, the farming sector, they're destroying the farming sector. They're going to be gone. They don't understand. They're brainwashing our kids in our educational system. They don't understand about this climate change bullshit. There's no critical thinking. They're not giving two sides of the argument. The media are controlled. They're all left-leaning thinking. Even the teachers, we're getting the educational system pushing their own agenda. We've lost the older generation that used to teach the kids, and with their own ideology, and the kids have been brainwashed. We see policies here by the Greens, and Malcolm gets up to want to debate them over this climate change. They won't even debate him. Where are the Greens now? Why aren't they down here if they are so...
Just thought I'd pause that for a minute, folks, because having drop frames and things happening here and there and all those sort of things. So the video is not real good, but hopefully the sound's coming through. And in the meantime, I found this picture today. Thought I'd read it to you. A pessimist sees a dark tunnel. An optimist sees a light at the end of the tunnel. A realist sees a freight train. The train driver sees three idiots standing on the tracks. Anyway, back to the show, hey? Pauline.
Right, why aren't they here facing you, the people, and answering your questions? You won't see them because they can't answer your questions. They are not here for you, for the people. All they do is the same old rhetoric, more handouts all the time. This is a prosperous nation, or it was. It was a country we were proud of. It was a country where people would take up arms to fight for our rights. But now, will they? Will they? You know, that's why, if I look around here, It's mostly the older generation, because you know what this country was like. You know what is happening in this country. And the younger generation have no idea. The carbon, dioxide, what's happening to the earth, for God's sake, 97% of it comes from natural resources. If there's any temperature change, it's the bloody sun that's causing it. It's in relation to the earth, to the sun. It's not because we expect 3% from the people, and yet they bring in all this rubbish about taxing us, of shutting down our way of life, shutting down our farming, shutting down everything that is important to us as a nation. Surely we can see what's happened to other countries around the world to ensure that it doesn't happen here. We don't have a government here that's independent and free thinking. We've got a government here run by the unions pushing their own agenda. We have a government run by the United Nations. We are losing control of our country. And those people worried about the Crown, God, the unions have more control over this parliament than what Prince King Charles does. And people worrying about that. What I say to you people, go back, talk to your loved ones, talk to your family, talk to your grandchildren, tell them what the hell is going on. Don't be blinded anymore to think that you can just continually vote for the Liberal or the Labor or the National Party. And I'm telling you that now. Look at why you're voting for them. Look at their policies. And I'll tell you something too. The National Party has followed my leads on so many issues. Who was the first one that came out against the voice? Me. Who was the first one that came out against COVID? Myself. Who was the first one that came out against multiculturalism? I was. Because I've listened, because I am a grassroots Australian. Do you think I love coming down here all the time? I can't stand the place. But the fact is why I'm here is that I have to be here to be your voice. And I hope that I'm doing the right thing by you. Because it means so much to me. I can't just get up and walk away from it now. That's why I'm trying my best to get more members elected to Parliament who will represent you. But I want people with backbone. I want people who will stand up with some intestinal fortitude, who will have an opinion, say that opinion, to stand up for the Australian people. And that's the only way we can actually change this place, is get more people into this Parliament who can represent you. But I am fighting against the water rights, property rights, climate change BS, COVID. There's so much that's going on in this place. You have a right to live the life that you want to, not controlled by governments, by people, by parliaments, that we are taxed to the hilt. Every time we turn around, it's another regulation, another control that's put in place over our lives. We are Australia. This is no third world country from Africa. We are Australian. Respect the Anzacs that have fought and died for us. Respect the freedoms that we have today. And you do the right thing. Make sure you vote and vote wisely. Thank you for your support.
Grimshaw. I'm an author, an activist, a former candidate for the Australian Conservatives and then the Libertarian Party. I ran against Matt the Green Keane in the last state election.
Mute it again. that was Pauline Hanson before. That's what I was saying. And stuffed it up again. Well, I'll learn how to do this probably one day. Probably not. And back to the show.
In New South Wales. I'm also the founder, the inventor and the director of the Put the Majors Last campaign that we ran at the last federal election, and we shifted over 500,000 votes from the major parties to the minors. Now, why are we here today? Well, it's because the hypothesis of what I call the Hot Earth Society, that's the global boilists and the alarmists, they say that this minuscule trace gas, carbon dioxide, somehow magically traps heat in the atmosphere, and that if we burn organic fuels, that's coal, oil and gas, and add a tiny little bit more to that even kind of runaway warming, and we're all going to try and die. Well, that's their hypothesis. The reality is that there is no evidence in the historical record, there is no evidence in the geological record or scientifically that this can or will ever happen. Now, the physics of the global warming hypothesis is far too complex for a 10-minute speech, but just trust me when I say that carbon dioxide is not a magical heating gas. It does not trap heat and is absolutely not the global thermostat that controls the temperature of the planet. Now, I'm going to prove this to you by showing you my knob. Thank you. So, this is my knob. I call it the carbon dioxide dial. Now, we have a look at where we are today, over here at a mere 400 something parts per million. And we are told by the alarmists that if we double to 800 parts per million, then we are going to, this is going, thank you. I have no idea what you said, but thank you. So at 800 parts per million, then we're going to have extinction level events, human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria, and we'll be skiing between the palm trees. Now, of course, it's all garbage. Their predictions are as reliable as a panel light, and their solutions as corrosive as a wind turbine offshore. Now, why anybody gives these climate loons the time of day is beyond me. They claim that they follow the science, but they don't know what a woman is. They think there's 57 and they're afraid of cow farts. And supposedly we're the anti-science ones, but we're the ones who are talking about supercritical heat coal-fired power stations, modular nuclear reactors, fusion energy, whilst they blabber on about how advanced and progressive they are with their windmills. Windmills! A technology from the 12th century, which also happened to be the time when people used to sacrifice human beings to try and change the weather by cutting their heads off and cutting their hearts out. Now, look here. CO2 at 400 parts per million, that's today. Now, if we go up to 5 times, even 10 times today's level of CO2, we still have ice ages. So how can CO2 cause warming? It can't. And if we go all the way up here, see, we're told that here, CO2 will kill plant life and kill animals and there'll be mass extinctions. What absolute garbage. CO2 all the way up here, this is where plant life evolved at 4,000 parts per million. This is where the greatest explosion of life on Earth was, the Cambrian period, about 500 million years ago. And look down here, the dinosaurs survived 165 million years odd when CO2 was much higher than today. And like, you think cows are bad? Can you imagine like these guys blowing one off? I mean, talk about Jurassic farts. They were fine. So, CO2 is not a magical heating gas. It is essential to life on Earth, because if you look here, if we actually turn the dial down just a little bit, we end up in the dead zone. This is where all plant life and trees die. And there is nothing for the animals, and that's us as well, and the insects to eat. And even then the insects will die, so we won't even get to eat the bugs. So, show this picture to your friends and your family and people who still think that CO2 is a problem. And you can get it in my book, Trigger Warming. It's on sale over there, and I've got some copies with me. And this picture is actually also in the current edition of The Light, a great newspaper. Pick that up, it's on page 11, I think. And show it to your friends and family. Better still, show it to children and teenagers, because you want to show it to them, because they are the poor people who have been abused and terrified by this fraud. And, you know, taking away hope from children is absolutely criminal. So you ask, if CO2 is not a pollutant or a magical heating gas and it's beneficial to mankind, what are we doing all this for? Well, why is it that all of the supposed cures for global warming always require the increase of government control of our lives? Well, therein lies the answer. This is about controlling every aspect of our lives. Everything we do, everything we buy, everywhere we go. It's the same totalitarian socialist desire to dominate, impoverish, and enslave. I'll say that again. Dominate, D. Impoverish, I. Enslave, E. What does that spell? D-I-E, die. The global warming scam is just their means to an end, and it should be obvious by now that there is no end to what they are going to do to us. Remember how COVID started? Oh, it's just 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Oh, it's just a mask. Oh, it's just a lockdown. Oh, it's just QR code. Oh, it's jab. It's just 2 jabs. It's no jab, no jab, no job. They were just copying from the global warming playbook. They said, firstly, it's just going to be a few dollars, and then it's just a mining tax, and just a carbon tax, and just sea light bulbs, and just a battery. And now, just 15 years later, where are we now? Well, now it's gas stoves, no more petrol vehicles, shutting down agriculture, restricting travel, 15-minute cities, yeah, you get the picture, and seas of ugly black glass, plastic and toxic turbines. We used to joke that the government would tax the air that we breathe. Now they actually do it. They've made carbon dioxide into a commodity, and that can be traded and bought and sold. CO2 is now a sin tax, and now they're moving on to methane and nitrogen. How stupid is it that they are taxing elements of the periodic table? Now, what's their solution? Well, they just want unwanted, unneeded, unreliable, unsustainable, parallel power grid that they're building. And they're rigging the market by kneecapping the competition and extorting top dollar for their shoddy product. Now, we don't want your safe and effective, expensive, unreliable energy. Everything was just fine the way it was. These guys are worse than the mafia. And where's all this money going? It's going to man bun and man boobs. The thieving spivs who are so greedy that they need 2 surnames. And what do they do with their money? They buy their way into Parliament. They put the Sisterhood of Simpletons in there so that they can steal. That's steal, not teal. It's spelled steal with a $sign. They can steal more of our money and fill their pockets and fill the pockets of their sugar daddies. Now, I don't get up here to complain without offering you some solutions. So what can we do? Well, it's pretty simple. Stop voting for parties that support net zero. Put them last. The pen is mightier than the sword, and you get to hold that pen every couple of years. So don't waste your vote. But make sure you tell your local member and your candidate you are not going to support them if they support net zero. Now, we heard the Nationals get up here earlier, and they had some very fine speeches. And I don't know if they're still around, but Barney and Matt and everybody,
Words without actions are meaningless. You cannot stand up in front of the people here who vote for you or who you want to vote for you and claim you are against renewables and net zero, but then go back into that building and get back in bed with a party that is fully on board the net zero national suicide train. You're in an abusive relationship and you need to get out of it. Okay, so as I said, Nationals, you need to pull your head out, get back in there and tell the Liberals it's either net zero or it's us. And then you get out of the coalition. If the Liberals want to say no more net zero, okay, that's fine, that's great, okay? But otherwise, get out of the coalition with them and run against them, because we need our country back and we need somebody to stand up for us, okay? Put the majors last. Nationals, tell the Liberals to dump net zero. Thank you.
Net zero is dead to all life. No life can
Right.
without
Let's be serious about this. If we want to change the course we're on, we need more of this and we need less of that. Right? We don't need Minister Bowen, right? So we need more of this and less of that. So how do we do that? Well, quite frankly, we vote against this toxic, torrid, disgusting government. Now, I'm a farmer from the southeast of South Australia. I also happen to be a member of Parliament. But the reality is I'm here today supporting Mary from my electorate, but also thousands of cray fishermen off the southeast coast of South Australia. Now, offshore wind farms are as toxic as anything that happens on the land. So let me give you the example of offshore wind farms and what they're proposing to do to the fishermen of my electorate. 5,000 square kilometres of ocean ground locked up. That's the equivalent of putting a fence around 5,000 hectares of fertile land in Australia. Nobody, and I mean nobody, would be allowed to do that. But these merchant bankers, talking their gobbledygook, have convinced this government that that's a solution for them. Why? Because they don't want to see these things on dry land, because of course that leads to protests like this. So we need to make sure that everyone understands reckless renewables on land are bad. Reckless renewables at sea are just as bad. Fishermen, $120 million worth of economic output for South Australia.
Yes, just going to let that rest for a minute and maybe buffer away or something like that, whatever it is that's doing it. But my system's not as good as it should be. As you'll probably notice if you watch any of my shows. I don't know if anyone's, maybe DK's watching, but DK would be multitasking no doubt. He's probably got a few conversations going at once. Hey DK, how are you mate? And anyone else out in there watching this live, or if you watch it later. Hope enjoy the show. This video's got another 50 minutes or so. Then I'm going to do a quick exit the building, because I'm going down the bolo, as you do. And tomorrow I'm going to do a final video and a wrap up. If things start going bad, I'll stop the video early, but in the meantime, let's see what this other politician has to say, shall we? Yes. At least I wasn't muted that time, was I?
1,000 jobs, multi-generational, food, not electrons. Food, not electrons. Now, I also represent the Barossa. Hands up if you've ever been to the Barossa. I encourage more of you to visit. It's one of the most beautiful, iconic places in the world. In fact, it's one of the places in Australia where you mention its name anywhere on earth and people know what you're talking about. first-class food, fibre and, importantly, wine. Now, I'm here to tell you they're also putting that at risk because the Twin Creek power plant will put a series of these turbines on the northern escarpment of the Barossa Valley. Now, the people of the Barossa are upset about that, just like the people of the Limestone Coast, particularly around Port Macdonald and the southern ports, are filthy about what's happening to their community. So the reality, ladies and gentlemen, is more of this, less of that up there. And there'll only be two governments in this nation. There'll be one that's a Labor government. The only other party of government is the coalition. Like it or lump it, that's the reality. And right now, you've only got one choice if you want to get rid of Minister Bowen, and that is to vote against this government and give Peter Dutton a chance to be Prime Minister of this country and put us on the right direction.
G'day, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Paul Fennell. I'm an irrigation farmer from west of Wagga. You've had the politicians and you've had the scientists, and now you've got a person. We're actually already experiencing it. You've heard today what's coming, what they're going to do, what it can do, what it can't do. Well, let me tell you what it's already doing. 5 kilometres from the centre of the CBD of the largest inland city in New South Wales being Wagga Wagga. It's so good we say it twice. 5 kilometres. We've got thousands of acres of solar panels already threatening our CBD. We've got landowners already there that can't go home to their properties because of the runoff from the solar panels, the carcinogenic runoff, the soil erosion, the environmental terrorism. Now, many of us here and many of us all around Australia have survived the shocking Murray-Darling Basin plan, the plan that wasn't a plan. And under that, they said you had to have environmental, social and economic triple bottom line. We're supposed to have the same thing. Reckless renewables. We haven't. It's environmental terrorism. It's dividing society. It's pitting farmer against farmer. It's pitting town against farmer. You can't eat renewable power. And yet, Colliambly on the this is in the Riverina. Heartland National Party. Where's Michael McCormack today? Nowhere to be found. Where are the Nationals? They've been here today, but they're not consistent. Michael McCormack was too busy dressing up like Elvis at parks to worry about meeting with his constituents. So back to his electorate, Colliambly, just west of Wagga, the heart of the MIA. They've just handed over 3,000 acres for 180 wind turbines, right in the heart of rice country. When those rice mills are running at capacity, they feed 1 million people per day worldwide. They're changing that to a wind farm, a wind factory. Where's the social, economic and environmental in that? We have town planning. I'm also a former Wagga City councillor for 10 years, but they ran me out of town. They hunted me down, which I hold as a badge of honour. Your town planners, the union, the town planners, all are driving this. Not one in Wagga, and we are surrounded by now tens of thousands of acres of solar farms. Not coming, there's more coming, they're already there. But not once did our town planners oppose any of these solar farms. I'm saying the answer to this is you march on your local governments, you march on your state offices, and you march on this house behind us. And you stand up and you stand together and you stand with your neighbour. Lock the gate. When they come onto your property, say no. That's what you do. That's the answer, and that's what we have to do. We have to call out these lazy, apathetic politicians that won't stand there for you. This is meant to be a house of democracy behind us. It's a house of autocracy. They're not listening, and unless we stand up together and unite, We must stop the NIMBYism. I'm fed up with hearing, not in my backyard. Oh, have your renewable energy zone over there. Every man's home is his castle. Every man's trash is someone else's treasure. There is no place for this renewable energy. Say no. Don't say, oh, we support renewable energy, but somewhere else. Say, no, we do not support renewable energy. Stop it now. That's what we do. Get on to the militant unions, get on to those parliamentarians, and get on to your local councillors, your state members. You've got Joe McGurr in Wagga, a so-called independent, who says, oh, I'm the lifeblood for these people. We're going to get power lines put underground. I still want to support renewable energy zones. That's having a bet each way. Say no. No more. That's the answer to that. We opened today with the Speaker, Rob Parker, who spoke on nuclear energy. Join us in Wagga. We're actually putting together Nuclear for Wagga. We're going to put together the feasibility of building nuclear power. We have a community, we have the technology, we have the water, we have the will, we have the ability, we have everything. Join us in that fight. If these greenies and these lefties, whether they're from the woke of the world, the ones with the snouts in the trough, that's what's driving this. Greed. Greed is driving it. Tell them we have a model. If they believe in this, they will join us. Thank you for your time. You've heard it ad nauseum today. Appreciate it. But stand up, stand together and say no to no more renewables.
Now, who's responsible for this damnable solar energy? I had to tell you, but you're looking at him. I put the first standalone system in Australia back in 1983. So I know a lot about it. You know, it was very controversial. I know a lot about it. And the first question you ask, have you cleaned your solar panels this week? And no one ever cleans their solar panels. They climb up the roof and clean the solar panels. Well, our instructions were that it does not work unless you clean it every 9 days. Every 9 days. And people say, well, that's not right. Well, how often do you clean your windscreen? Well, once a week. Well, same thing. You can't see how that windscreen, sun rays can't get through that glass. Pretty simple. Now, I want to just give you a little bit of reality. It'll probably shock some of you. Archaix, the biggest power station in Australia, has announced its closure in 2025. Yallourn in Victoria has announced its closure, third biggest power station in Australia, in 2028. Vales Point, the third biggest power station in Australia, has announced its closure in 2029. Callide B in Queensland, 2028. Torrens Island, 2026. Now, if you think they're having a go at you, Liddell announced its closure in 2023 and it's closed. Torrens Island announced closure of half last year and it closed. So they're not mucking around. They've told you that 9,000 megawatts is coming off a 32,000 megawatt grid. Now, if you can add up, that means the lights go out in 5 years' time. And I know because I was the electricity minister in Queensland. If you are going to be short of power in 6 years' time, you'll be flat out getting a power station built between now and then. So the lights are going to go off. Now, this is the answer from the Minister for New South Wales, and I saw her on the television. And she said, yes, we got outages, we haven't got enough power to keep the electricity system going, so could you please turn your air conditioners off? That was her answer, was turn your air conditioners off. That was her answer. Now, Mr. Bowen, I read out all these stations that were closing, so a third of your grid is vanishing, What are you doing about it? What is your plan? Or are we just relying upon the Tooth Fairy and Father Christmas, are we? And his answer was, it's the Liberals' fault. It's the Liberals' fault. That's his answer to the problem. We got one hell of a problem coming up here. And I just noticed that reference there to Youngler. So the answer is Youngler. They're going to put a pump storage in at Youngler. There are only 8 nominated platypus habitats left in Australia. And Youngler is one of the 8 platypus habitats. And they're going to put a pump storage there right through the middle of jungle. Well, there's hardly any jungle left in the world. And they're going to chop it down so they can put a pipe up there, a penstock pipe. I mean, but that demonstrates the ridiculous nature of these people. And I had not fully appreciated it till I went along to a bunch of people that used to be greenies, but they're nature lovers, and they were opposing Chulumban, which was the biggest wind farm in Australia. And I went along to the meeting, because it's in the Kennedy electorate I represent. And I found to my horror that they were going to clear 150 metre wide for 150 kilometres long. They're going to clear it on top of the Great Dividing Range. Massive erosion, and 200 metres the last remaining jungle left on Earth. Now, you know, when we stood up and we fought it, we won. It's been called off. The whole project's been destroyed. And so we should congratulate ourselves on the win. Spectator magazine said the Franklin Dam of the century. And I think that was a fair call, and it scared hell out of the government, because it was going to be the Franklin Dam. But, you know, we won. So the message there for all of us. Now, I want to say this to you. I never like to say, this is all wrong, so what are you going to do about it? There's one other aspect to this, which I love to bring people's attention. When I came home one day, I found out my wife had put solar all over our roof. And she, being shy, quiet, retiring little thing, she said, if you take the subsidies away, I'll kill you. and I said, no, I think it's a great idea. There are 23 houses in our street. We're the only rich people in the street, and we got solar panels. The other 22 have to pay an extra $2,000 a year to subsidise we rich people, because they've got solar panels. They're going to pay $3,000 a year for their electricity to subsidise we rich people. So I think it's a marvellous arrangement. You know, tax the poor, subsidise the rich, and look no further than my own street. Now, you know, I've got to say, some of you won't like me saying this either, but snowy too. Well,
gotta love the honesty, if it's honesty. That was well said, I thought. Anyway, let's carry on, shall we?
It's on track. I think it's the year 3000 that'll be completed at the present rate. Armidale, there's a proposal. There's a good proposal too. Barumba in Queensland, you know, done properly, it's a good proposal too. And Tully is a good proposal. Now, none of those are on the drawing board except Snowy 2, and it's not going real well. But even then, that's 5,000 and got an efficiency of 9,200. Can't you bloody well add up? Can't you add up? Now, I missed out today on bringing my jacket like this I got, except it's white and it's got a tree on it, the talking tree. And the talking tree says, no CO2, no me. And then on this side, there's the koala bear, and he says, no tree, no me. And I left the bloody thing at home. But anyway, I got the message across to you. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't happen unless there's some CO2. And this is very interesting because in investigating a tunnel through the range of Queensland, I had the maps, and they were done after the Second World War, and they have no, what's the word I'm after? A jungle, except up against the Great Dividing Range. Now, I just want to double check, so I got an aerial photograph, and the jungle had extended an extra 4.5 kilometres grown, and it's called treeification, and it's everywhere. We've got the Great Inland Plain in North Queensland, never a tree on it in 33 million years, never a tree, no evidence of a tree ever growing there. And now we've got 23,000 square kilometres of a weed tree, prickly acacia growing on it. So there is a treeification phenomenon. More CO2, more trees. Is more trees a good thing? Is more trees a good thing? Yeah. Yeah, more trees are a good thing. More trees are a good thing. And there's your proof. There's your proof. You know, I'm not saying it's absolute proof, but it's very strong evidence that there's more trees because there's more CO2 in the atmosphere. Now, I conclude on this note, and you know, some of you want to be saying, but it's a positive sort of note. I went along to see Tanya Plibersek. Now look, Tanya, I was asking for 4 minutes of your time. The future of electricity will be coal-fired and it will be algae ponded. And we want the algae ponds, not because I care about CO2, but because we want to make money out of the algae. We make more money, and she can be sure. And she knew the names of the algae. She knew. So I said, a giant coal-fired power station, zero emissions, not because I live that off the atmosphere, but because I want to make money out of the algae. You can use it for stock feed, human feed, or you can use it for diesel. And she said, I very strongly prefer the diesel model. Now, having said that, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to the Minister, but she's not going to do anything. Even if she wants to, she's not going to be allowed to. So that's the way it is. And finally, I conclude on this note. China and India have a third of the world's population. They're like 10 times bigger than the next nearest country, or even group of countries. And so China is building 200 giant coal-fired power stations. And in the meantime, they're sending to the mugs in Australia. Where do we get our electricity from? From China. Oh, that's clever, isn't it? Where do we get our petrol from? Overseas. Where do we get our motor cars from? Overseas. Where do we get our pumps to pump the water so we can have a drink of water? From China. From China. What sort of a country are we living in? I mean, who is running this country? And if I was a member of the Liberal or National Party, I would be ashamed to turn up here today. I would be utterly ashamed. And that's all I can say. Utterly ashamed. So the answers are there. You know, they're giant coal-fired power stations with giant ponded areas to take the algae. And I mean, India's wrong, China's wrong, but Australia's right. Yeah, and pigs will fly. God bless you all. God bless you all.
Hi all, good to see you. My name's Alan Moran. I've been involved in this debate for about 25 years. I don't think I've ever had Bob Catter as my warm-up act before when I've been speaking on these issues. Many of the people here today, I think, are very much concerned about visual intrusion and about loss of crops and danger to farming from the wind farms themselves and from the transmission lines. I think also they're very important. But to me, the key issue is the destruction of our economy, which is being caused by the energy policy, which I've been contesting for many years, 25 years or more. And we saw this developing through the coalition years. It developed from what is a total con job in terms of global warming being attributed to carbon dioxide, and this has led to a combination of intellectual elites, if you like, and the money-grubbing subsidy seekers poisoning our system and basically bringing about these huge subsidies to renewable energy. Let me just say, there is not one wind farm or one solar panel being produced anywhere, being developed anywhere in Australia without a subsidy. And those subsidies started off in a small way with John Howard, who was trying to placate his left wing. He said he was going to have 2% additional energy was going to be the wind or solar. Well, you know, 20 years later, we got 25% more. The original cost was going to be just a few $100 billion. It is now $10 billion per year. We're spending $10 billion a year subsidising wind and solar. And we've seen that the present government, the Albanese government, turbocharging these sorts of measures with increased requirements for the top 215 firms. Even last week, it introduced a new measure which will tax motor cars other than those which are going by the electric regime that they want. Is basically a system which they're saying this is great because it will mean it will be cheaper for everybody. It's the typical of the elite saying, you the people, we the people, can't make a decision to trade off the cost of a vehicle with the operating costs, and we need the government to tell us what that cost should be. So every week we're seeing a new measure brought about by the politicians to sort of tighten this tourniquet, and I think the result of all this is that we have moved the subsidies themselves are creating loss of profit, unprofitability on the coal-powered stations, and they have to close as a result of that. And the result, even now, is we've gone from what used to be the cheapest electricity in the world to just about the dearest in the world. And you know, the subsidy seekers all contest, all tell us that the coming thing is wind and solar. Not only is it good for the environment, but it's great for everybody because it's cheaper. And yet all we can see is the dearer prices. We've seen the wholesale price of electricity rise over the last 5 or 8 years from about $40 a megawatt hour to $120 a megawatt hour. And we see occasional blips downwards of this. We saw one in the December quarter. And what happened? We had the politicians piling on, with the regulators piling on. We had the con men in the renewable industry piling on, telling us that we'd turned the corner, that it's no longer 3 times as dear to have the renewables, it's only twice as dear. But we turned that corner, we turned it again back in January, when the prices once more shot up to 3 times or more what they were before. And this has to be the pattern. There is no other way that it can go. Renewables are intrinsically expensive and will remain so. The big tragedy, though, is that we have the system whereby we're spending this $10 billion a year. This isn't like the normal run-of-the-mill wasteful spending on the part of governments, the sort of the thing they do all the time in that place over there and in other parliaments. This is basically creating measures which will bomb our electricity, and have done, bomb our electricity industry. In other words, we're being forced to spend money, hire money on electricity so that we can actually destroy what was the most competitive electricity industry in the world. And the result, we've already seen the result of this in terms of what were the front runners, I guess, of our industry sectors, the aluminium smelters. All 3 of the major smelters are now on hospital care. They're actually being subsidised, ironically, to compensate for the subsidies that's killing their power source, which is coal. So we basically have a situation where we are financing bombs to be dropped upon ourselves. We have to roll this back. We've been moving in that direction for 25 years, inexorably. Presently, we are seeing fightbacks. We are seeing people individually affected by it, and we are seeing crowds of people like we see today actually voicing their concerns. And we have to keep doing that, as Bob Catter and other politicians have mentioned. We've got to keep doing it. We've got to keep advertising, putting our case forward to our friends, family, and to our politicians, and make sure that the rot ends. Make sure that we cancel all these subsidies, which are basically destroying our economy, increasing costs of not only electricity electricity, but all the goods and services we buy. We can do this, we should do it, and we have to continue to do it, and it's meetings like this which will have that effect in doing so. So thank you everybody for coming along, and let's hope we do have a turning point right now.
Hello everyone, my name's Kate Mason and I'm representing Community Voice Australia. And so what I want to do is give a bit of I'm here about the farming land and our food. So I want to give a bigger picture as to what's going on globally and answer the questions as to why the government does not seem very concerned about putting renewable energy through farming land. So if you look around the world, if you look in New Zealand, the Netherlands, Germany, France, Sri Lanka, England, you'll see farmers protesting all around the world because of their government's net zero plans that is completely impacting on their capacity to be able to keep farming. So this points to a global agenda. And if we look globally, it answers the questions as to why they're putting their renewable energy on and why they're not concerned about the food production. I mean, people say it, you see it in lots of signs at protests around the world, no farmers, no food. And so it doesn't really make sense. And we've heard all day about people being really badly affected, the terrible effects on the environment and the farming land. So nothing's really adding up. And that's because we need to actually determine what's really happening in the world. So that's what I'm planning to spell out a little bit of that. So see, the COP is the United Nations Climate Change Conference. At COP26, more than 40 investors who manage a combined $18 trillion urged the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, sorry, I've just lost my place, to create a plan to curb emissions in the agricultural sector. At COP27, the United Nations Food Agency aims to launch a plan within the year to make the world's food system more sustainable. The plan would show how the food industry and farming can align with the world's goal of capping global warming. At the recent COP28, Bill Gates said on the issue of food systems and climate change, a lot of people aren't able to grow their crops. We talk about using innovation to solve that problem. And a lot of young companies are here and the big corporations will find a lot of partnerships come out of it. So what does that mean? Innovation, climate change, resilience, all the buzzwords we hear about farming. In 2019, the largest 1,000 corporations in the World Economic Forum and the United Nations created a partnership to speed up the implementation of the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So what does the WEF, the World Economic Forum, say about food? This is a quote from them. Current global food systems cannot provide a sustainable, healthy diet for the world's growing population. Biotech can deliver sustainable solutions by transforming, and you'll always hear the word transform, the food and agricultural sector. So this is go on to say we have to feed the world sustainably, and then when they talk about examples, they talk about the first lab-grown infant milk derived from mammary cells and other forms of lab meat. If we replace meat-based proteins with alternative proteins, we can drastically reduce global warming, water use and land use. That's their quote. In 2020, the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization formed a partnership with CropLife, which is the biggest chemical companies, Bayer, Monsanto, Syngenta, etc., who own the vast majority of biotech and chemicals and represent the 4 companies who own 75% of the global feedstock. Canada's Policy Horizons, an arm of the Canadian government, says more clearly the government documents. Traditional agriculture relies on land, water and a suitable climate. In the future, foods could be manufactured anywhere in labs and outdoor vertical farms. This could fundamentally reshape the agricultural sector. In Australia, in June 2020, this is from the ABS statistics, there were 369 million hectares of agricultural land. That was down 5% from the previous year, 5% in 1 year. The CSIRO is where we need to really look at when we look at Australia. So they have a lot of documents, but if you look at some like Reshaping Australian Food Systems, they talk about precision fermentation, which is GMO yeast, fed sugar, and through a dystopian feat of genetic engineering produces proteins. And they talk about gene editing, which will allow us to more precisely engineer the genome of crops and animal organisations. They have a synthetic biology roadmap, and they have an edible insect roadmap. So I spent the weekend under Community Voice Australia putting in a submission regarding that we do not support the first cell-based lab quail being put into the Australian and New Zealand food market. And I mean, it's the most dystopian method if you're trying to get your head around the technologies and the layer and layer of synthetic biology stuff that goes into this thing that they then compare to actual quail, actual meat. So I just want to quote you. So this has been done by Vow Food, this application, and the FSANZ, the Food Standards Australia New Zealand, is hell-bent on accepting it and allowing it. So one of the co-founders is George Pepot, and his quote in an interview I was listening to, in the same way that horses still kick around for leisure, and you see very wealthy people choosing to ride horses for that sense of tradition and prestige that comes with a costly, exclusive pursuit like that, because it just doesn't make sense. It's not the most efficient, but it has this history and heritage. I suspect farms that produce high quality and sustainable and ethical meat are still going to exist in 50 to 100 years from now. Those ideas of an exclusive experience are still going to exist in 100 years, but they're not going to be mainstream. They're going to be a way for people to hark back to the era we are in now to show they can afford that and have those experiences. So put plainly, the vast majority, according to this biotech, who's heavily backed by CSIRO interests, so to put it very plainly, we're going to be eating lab meat and precision fermentation proteins and insects and genetically modified CRISPR edited things. So, and then the wealthy can afford to buy the food we have now. So under the guise, this all comes under the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 2, which is zero hunger, feed the world, and United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 13, which is climate action. We are to embrace the PR spin that is sustainable. It's highly energy intensive, it's all synthetic and has extraordinarily disturbing health implications. It's not accurate what they're saying. So other threats to farmers that I can see is that 30% of land protected. So this is Labor. Our government will set a goal of protecting 30% of our land and 30% of our oceans by 2030. And this is the World Wildlife Fund, talking about that to be able to do that across New South Wales and to revegetate and rewild. This is again another global agenda. Millions of hectares of long cleared land in the sheep wheat belt. So they've got to reclaim that land. This would require significant investment from state and federal governments, as well as corporate and philanthropic outfit support through natural capital markets. In some cases, creation of new protected areas may be contested by some locals. They know people are going to stand up against this. It's in their documents. It's in there, people are going to have protesting around the climate changes that they bring in. The Indigenous Sea and Land Strategy, 2023 to 2028, 72% of Australia will be under legal claim by Indigenous organisations by 2030, so that's 72%. Then you've got this protecting 30 by 30 of Australia. Then you've got your national forests and state forests. So the natural asset companies, recently Rockefeller, it's taken off, they made a bid to put nature on the stock market, and wealthy investors can bid on nature and ecosystem services, which means they value nature based on this is how much clean air it's going to give. This is how much clean air it's going to give. So they want to trade on that. If that had got through, it meant that they would have a level of ownership. Corporates would own over, so farmers might still have one layer of ownership. The corporates would own an overlaying layer, and then the corporate entities could tell the farmers what they need to do on the land, which can include renewables, because supposedly that's very good for the environment. So these are all these things, these are happening. So it was taken off. I think it was too much pushback in America, but it's there. If you look at how many government documents in Australia have this natural asset, they're gearing up for this. We also have the climate change modelling. So the Climate Change Council of Australia has said 1 in 25 houses will be uninsurable by 2030 based on their modelling. And in New Zealand, they are moving very quickly into managed retreat, where based on faulty climate modelling, people are being made to, well, they're just about to do it. It's all just happening, and people in New Zealand are starting to fight back. It means if you can't insure your home, you can't sell it. So there's a massive amount of things that can happen through this climate change modelling. Basically, what's happening is a massive transfer of wealth. It's very, very simple. If we look at all our infrastructure, it's going into foreign multinational corporate hands. Under the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, we the people pay for it. Enormous transfer of wealth. The reason now farmers are being squeezed, they're the next people, it'll be somebody else after them. The future, according to them, is synthetic. As much as I'm incredibly concerned about synthetic food, can you imagine when every single aspect of our food system is patented? The control. That's how it's happening all around the place. So I'm trying as hard as I can, Community Voice, that we support our local farmers, we buy directly from them. We have to actually, I'm here to support the farmers. We really have to get out there and do it. And we have to understand that what's going on, and we need to speak to the young people because, you know, they can hear all this. I was listening to George, he's in his 30s, it's all these cool, groovy guys, you know, we're saving the planet by artificial lab meat, we're, you know, feeding the world. We need to really explain to them that what they're doing is selling out the people, creating a control grid around us. And, you know, because these people, like when I was quoting Bill Gates and he's saying, you know, there's lots of young companies here, he's meaning these young people who genuinely probably want to make a difference in the world, but they're being latched on by massive multinational corporates. When I looked at Val Food, that has put the submission in to the FSANZ, they're backed by Blackbird. When I looked at Blackbird, it was the ex-CEO of CSIRO for 8 years. He is a venture capitalist. He has a company called Blackbird. His partner in Blackbird has now gone into the CSIRO and got a partnership with them about venture capital firms that fund these startup companies creating this synthetic future. There is so much conflict of interest, it's unreal. So we need to support each other. Don't allow us to sort of fight amongst each other. We really do have something and a really big thing coming on. I think it's got its hands around our throats and we have to push back. Thank you.
G'day, wonderful people. My name's Kevin Lockray. I'm a Lieutenant Colonel. Well, I'm retired, but I served for 32 years in the military. About 23 initially, then I left because it was so boring. They didn't have any wars. As soon as I left, the wars started up. They knew I'd left. Look, I could spend the 10 minutes that are allotted to me thanking you all for coming here. You're all wonderful people, and the speakers that have come up here have been amazing and informative. I'm here to tell you about the fact that the world is not warming, it's actually cooling. And I thought we could have a little bit of fun. Now, when I hold up my hand like this, I want you to say, they lied. Can I hit that? They lied! Got it in one. So I brought along a series of graphs, and I would like to acknowledge the help of a fellow called Tony Heller, who is an amazing scientist in the United States, and he's most probably in his efforts gone a long way towards saving this world from a disaster. The first graph that you see here, and I know it's a long way away, but you can see that the line is going downwards. This is a graph of meteorological data from the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia. And the other parts of the graph are from Australian archives, and it shows a distinct cooling trend. So if the Bureau has been telling you that it's warming, this is from the US Climatology Network, taken from stations of long standing. You can see that the graph is going downwards. So if NASA tells you that the Earth is warming, this is from the Japanese Meteorological Agency, and this is data from the Antarctica from 1960 to about the present day. You can see that there is a gradual cooling, and in fact last year the temperatures dropped to the lowest ever recorded. This is Sierra Leone, and this is actually NASA data, it goes back to 1880 to 1995, and you can see quite clearly that the Earth's atmospheric temperature is dropping. This is the temperature from Brazil, and that goes from 1896 to 2008. And this, in fact, is NASA data, to NASA in a moment. But you can see that the graph is going downwards, is cooling in Brazil. This is Durban on the east coast of Africa. It shows you from 1880, or in fact even before 1880, through to the year 2000, that the atmospheric temperature has been steadily in decline. And we talked about NASA. The black line, which I hope you can see in a distance, is from the National Center of Atmospheric Research. It was a highly respected US government agency, the black line. They published this graph in 1974, saying that we're heading into an ice age. And by the way, they're right. It's going to be a mini ice age, but we are heading into an ice age. The black line. The red line that you see there was published by NASA and, in fact, the Goddard Institute of Space Studies. And you may have heard about ClimateGate, where there were a number of emails that were leaked, which showed that the scientists involved in NASA and also in the UK climatology organisation, they were fiddling with the figures and they didn't want to show data that would go against the global warming narrative. The red is from NASA, and it's 2019. They have fraudulently rewritten the temperature history. Now, don't believe me, you can go and look at this yourself. I have personally investigated this. I'm a lieutenant colonel. I'm absolutely a patriot of this country. I was prepared to die for this country and its people. And I'm telling you that this is the truth. It is fraud. Moving closer to Australia, this is from the Global Historical Climate Network, which feeds into the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And you will see here that there is a red line going up. That is all manufactured data. The blue line is actually from temperature stations around Darwin that have not been encroached upon by urban conurbation. And it shows a clear cooling trend. Certainly it doesn't show a massive warming. Here we have cyclones in Australia, and you'll see that the severity and number of cyclones is declining. It's not getting greater. We are not faced with some sort of climate catastrophe. If anything, the climate is becoming more temperate because of the cooling. Not too long ago, all of my neighbours were flooded. And the reason we got flooded was because of government ineptitude. But many people turned around and said we got flooded because of climate change. This graph, which goes back to 1880 for Lismore, which is near where I live, shows that the rainfall around Lismore has not changed materially since 1880 to the present day. Or severe. They're not as severe. However, the greenies are doing their best to let us out of national parks and such like. Now, I believe that there should be a certain amount of logging of old growth forests. And the reason I say that is when you take a few logs, I'm not talking about clear felling, that's another story of which I'm absolutely vehemently opposed to clear felling. But when you do have harvesting, responsible harvesting of logs in old growth forests, new trees grow. An old growth forest is in status, and the carbon cycle tells you that the amount of carbon dioxide that an old forest absorbs will equal the amount of carbon dioxide that it emits. Of course, things can only grow to a certain density, and then it stops growing. But if you go in there and you harvest responsibly some of the trees, you promote new growth. But I'm not really all that worried about carbon dioxide. When you go in there, you will create fire trails. So if there ever is a bushfire, you're able to get people in there safely to fight the fire. You'll also create fire breaks, which will stop the propagation of hot burns. You'll also take inventory of the wildlife. And every now and again, you'll catch some of these wildlife and examine their blood. And if they're suffering from something like chlamydia, you will quarantine that colony and treat them with antibiotics so as to cure them of chlamydia, which is really, really good for the wildlife of this country. And I love the wildlife of this country. Okay, here's the kicker. This is from 2 ice cores, Greenland, going back 10,000 years. It's possible by looking at the ionisation of molecules to determine what the temperature was at a particular time. And from these ice cores, we can see that the Earth's atmospheric temperature has been dropping for 8,000 years. The bottom curve, which you see at the bottom here, is actually the concentration of carbon dioxide, which we can also measure in the ice cores. Now, those ice cores show us positively that the Earth's atmosphere has been cooling for 8,000 years whilst carbon dioxide has been steadily increasing. This is what's called a black swan event. Often scientists see something, a correlation, and say, oh, look, because of this, then that. And then along comes something which totally breaks the narrative. This totally breaks the narrative. I studied thermodynamics. I've had a dream life. I had the most incredible life, and I'm very grateful for it. And I'd like my children and grandchildren and their successors to have a similar life. And that's why I'm standing here today. But the thing is, I was trained in thermodynamics to 4th year university level, and I gained honours, and the focus of my study was on water and hot gas. And I can tell you that within the world of thermodynamics and physics, there is absolutely no way a trace element gas like carbon dioxide, which absorbs 3 narrow bands of the IR spectrum, could possibly warm the Earth's atmosphere. This is one huge fraud. Now, I'm not a lone voice in the wilderness. Professor Dr. Richard Lindzen agrees vehemently with my posit. So does Professor Dr. Will Happer, who happens now to be a friend of mine. Professor Ian Plimer is also a friend of mine, and a great man, by the way. Professor Dr. Willie Sewn, Professor Dr. Valentina, I've got all of these Slavic names, Valentina Zelenko also agrees with what I'm saying. And in fact, she will be giving a lecture to my group on the 26th of February. Valentina has studied the grand solar minimum, or the nature of the sun, and she has a group in Northumbria University that have successfully modelled the behaviour of the sun. We are entering into a grand solar minimum, and by 2035, this world will become a couple of degrees cooler. It's not going
Come on, don't fail me now. About 3 minutes left, folks. This guy's pretty cool, I reckon. No, this is a recording. Yeah, sorry, folks. We're having a bit of an issue. As you do. There's me from yesterday.
Professor Dr. Willie Sewn, Professor Valentina, I've got all of these Slavic names, Valentina Zelenko also agrees with what I'm saying. And in fact, she will be giving a lecture to my group on the 26th of February. Valentina has studied the grand solar minimum, or the nature of the sun, and she has a group in Northumbria University have successfully modelled the behaviour of the sun. We are entering into a grand solar minimum, and by 2035 this world will become a couple of degrees cooler. It's not going to be catastrophic. We will be able to move our farming to areas where it's conducive to the crops that we're growing. So don't anybody think that the world's going to end.
Background noise, folks. Sorry about that.
Grand solar minimum. We were in one. Honestly, and this is what causes me the gravest of concern. This red line is the cost of electricity, and the blue line is the consumer price index, and this data is taken from the Bureau of Statistics. All of you are now paying a huge cost for connection to the grid, something in the order of $1.70 a day. That money is being used to build all of those transmission lines. It's being wasted. You're also now paying 7 times more for your electricity than you were in 2007. This is a huge wealth transfer. The money is going to BlackRock, Vanguard, and out the back door of them to the Chinese Communist
are borrowing money, and when you follow the money trail, you'll find that money eventually is coming from the Communist Party of China, and we're using that borrowed money, billions and billions of dollars, to buy windmills and solar panels from the Chinese Communist Party. In other words, we are slitting our own throats. The people up there on the hill are responsible for this, and that's all of the parties. We've seen a few good people turn up today, and there are really good people in various parties. But I would beg you all to become interested in politics. Tell your children to get involved in politics. I don't care what party you join, just be patriotic Australians. Try to look at the facts and make the right decisions. Right now, the right decisions are not being made, and this country is heading towards an economic catastrophe, which will ruin the future of your children, your grandchildren, and their successors. Thank you very, very much for coming to listen to me today.
Well, that was pretty eye-opening, wasn't it? Yeah, scientists, hey, and I reckon most people just believe that the wind turbines and things are a good idea. I didn't know, I didn't really know as much as I do now, having watched these couple of videos. There's actually two more, but I'm not going to play them today, I'm going to do them tomorrow. It's about another hour or so's worth of videos, I think. And then I'm going to get DK on and we're going to have a bit of a chat. So this will be, I don't know, about 1 PM or so, Australian Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. And yeah, picture over the back for a mate, a guy I met in New Zealand. Try again. Canberra, funny enough. It's a wizard and his dog. Yeah, cool people. Anyway, be good to each other, folks. And oh, by the way, share this. If you liked the video, if you watched it, or anything like that, because let's face it, should have been a pretty good show. It's had some great politicians. Well, I don't know about great, but yeah, politicians anyway. And some scientists and some music. Hey, there's more music to come too, folks, and more bullshit. So, we'll get back to that tomorrow. In the meantime, folks, as I normally say, be good to each other. Don't take shit from the government, because they're going to be giving you, handing it out big time. Okay, Uru. In Archaix, even. I'm another you. That's what that means, folks, in case you didn't know.